This is just a very short introduction to the basics of what you need to do to become a working clairvoyant. So opening and closing. The best way I can explain this is to think of yourself, the medium, as a mobile phone. A metaphor, obviously. You receive messages from spirit, you translate, communicate, and you give out the speaker of yourself, the phone, your voice, the messages to the sitter. Like the mobile phone, you have a battery, which is on when you're open. If you stay open, that battery gets run down. What does that mean? So if you're open constantly, think of it like a pack of cigarettes. They come with a government health warning. These cigarettes will kill you. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to die tomorrow if you're open constantly. I'm not trying to panic you, but go back to the image of the mobile phone. If the phone is on constantly, the battery gets run down. You're the mobile phone, so if you're constantly open, you're constantly using your energy. Learning how to control it is very simple. It's just switching yourself on and off, opening and closing. I as a medium can teach you how to do that in minutes. Any qualified, experienced medium should be able to do the same. Any circle should be able to do the same as well. Signs to watch out for if you are constantly open: waking up at the same time every night, not being able to sleep, constantly being restless at night, waking up in the morning exhausted, that being cumulative over time to the point that you have to take a time period off just to recuperate. It can have more serious impacts if your health isn't good. For example, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and when I'm open, my sugar level gets run down. Think about that for a few seconds. Calling out versus going direct. This is the most misleading statement that people, mediums, make if they don't know what they're talking about. I call out, and it's okay to call out. Well, it's not. Anybody that's calling out opens themselves up to being accused of being amateurs and or fraudulent. Think about it. I've got a spirit called Joseph, and I'm calling out to 100 people. Who can take somebody called Joseph? 5 hands go up, maybe 10 hands go up. Joseph was a man. Joseph was in his 40s. Joseph had a beard. Is it guessing? Is it evidence? Okay, finally, when they narrow themselves down to the right person and they give more evidence, then I'll maybe accept them. But even as a qualified medium, I'm sitting in the audience going totally skeptic. And even if I am convinced the person has evidence, they shouldn't be giving messages. They should be back in circle learning the basics of mediumship. Now, you may not like this metaphor, but there are 3 ways of giving messages. 3 different images here, so concentrate on them in this order. Calling out or not going direct. That's the man at the top with the flintlock. He gets his gun together, he points at the field, he sees somebody at the other side of the field, maybe 100 people, he fires. Maybe he's lucky, maybe he hits somebody, but imagine if you're a soldier going to war. Imagine choosing a flintlock. Now, there's the way that most mediums that do work direct work. That's basically the image with the modern rifle. You can load it, it's got a sight, you can see who you're aiming at, and 99% of the time you'll give the message, and I'll be more than happy if that's the way you want to work. And I do sometimes work that way myself. I, however, have developed a method that I call pattern working. It's like using the machine gun. That's the professional soldiers in the third image. Last time I worked, prior to this video, I gave 67 direct messages in 2.5 to 3 hours. One person wasn't able to take the message, and I teach ways of how to deal with that. The playing with the rifle is the safe way. Doing it my way is the way to get yourself clients and to impress a lot of people. It's harder, and not many people can match it to the extent that I can, but if you come with me, I will make the assumption that I'm teaching you that method. It does have knock-on effects in the other ways that you would work, giving messages for private readings, fairs, etc. So it's not a sort of only use on stage, but that is the primary method of it, to be able to give large numbers of highly accurate direct messages. This slide is a mess, deliberately. It's got 3 overlapping images all saying the same thing, and that's basically what receiving from spirit is like. We're all different. We all receive in different ways, usually 2 to 5 different ways. We usually are able to focus on maybe 1 or 2 and then spend the rest of our spiritual development career chasing after some imaginary list of 25 different ways that spirit communicates that we as a working medium should be able to master. It doesn't work that way. Your guides and you have particular ways of communicating. What I, as a circle leader, have to do is work with you through multiple ways that spirit may or may not be communicating with you, figure out how spirit are communicating with you, and as I said, that's usually in much more ways than you realize, and then teach you how to work with that and realize. And everybody, and I underline that, everybody is different. Just take a simple mathematical equation. Let's just say there's just 15 different ways of communicating. Let's say that you're going to be able to use 3 of those. 15 times 15 times 15 is the number of combinations that you need to sort through. So it gives you some idea why I left that picture as confusing as it is. If you've got time later, look at it and you'll see that there's 3 different images, all overlapping, all showing different ways of communicating. The single most difficult skill that you have to learn in mediumship, and the one that all mediums get wrong at times, even myself, is understanding the message. Most people think that the spirit just types out a memo, word verbatim, and you just read it out. It doesn't work that way. Think of Sherlock Holmes, the consulting detective, and think about how he has to take clues and fit them together, appropriate for the circumstances, location, person that was murdered, survivors. And basically, that's what you as a medium have to do. You're given multiple clues, and you have to put them together. Now, with that in mind, I use 2 textbooks when I'm training people, and neither of them has anything to do with mediumship. It's all about thought process and how to be a detective, basically. The greatest and most glorious adventure of all. Those were the last words ever stated by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle as he passed over to his wife, who was, of course, a medium. Now, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, as well as being married to a medium, was also one of the greatest historical proponents, people who argued in favour of spiritualism, back in the days when it was starting and skeptics were fairly vocal in their opposition. He spent probably the most part of the money that he earned from his writing actually arguing and crusading. And who was he as an author? Well, he created Sherlock Holmes, the historical character from the last slide, who I gave as the example of the consulting detective who used evidence to come to conclusions, the very same way that mediums have to act and work with. And one minor but fairly important characteristic of Sir Arthur, he was Scottish, and that is actually quite significant. Why Scottish? What's so significant? What's so important? The last time I was in the United States, just before COVID, I bought myself a history book. It was called The 6 Ancient Civilizations, and it was basically about the 6 modern civilizations that could trace their roots back through history, thousands of years. Obviously, in North America, that is the Native American Indians. And it went through various cultures around the world. And I was totally shocked to realise that I was living in Scotland in one of those listed cultures. We trace our ancestry over several thousand years back to the Celts. Now, the Celts used to inhabit all of Western Europe, and they were a very spiritual people, basically using what we would now recognise as religious beliefs based on shamanism, which in modern days we consider a primitive form of mediumship. Now, Scottish history, you can trace through Scottish history various aspects of this all the way up to modern days. For example, we are the country that executed the largest number of witches per capita. Witches, in many cases, are simply people practicing mediumship and misinterpreted. Today, Scotland probably has one of the strongest, in inverted commas for the term, spiritual industries in the world. Let's just do a direct comparison from New York State to Scotland. New York State, where the Fox sisters started modern mediumship. New York State has 12 spiritualist churches. Scotland has somewhere in the region of 400. Our churches, spiritualist centres are probably a more accurate description, church is probably too strong an emphasis on religion, have mediums working there every week, a different medium every week. And with 400 churches, it gives you some indication of how many working mediums we have, for about 50 minutes to an hour every service. Now, every church has a circle, and it's those circles that I learnt my mediumship in, and it's those circles that I base my training techniques on. And although there's 400 different churches and they're all slightly different with different methodologies, they all follow the same basic methodologies that I use or that I have adapted. So who am I to be telling you how to train as a medium? Well, these are two pictures of me that were taken at an event a couple of weeks ago, just before the filming of this video. It was a commercial monthly contract I have with a chain of restaurants to go and work as a medium. They sell out months in advance when I'm working. At that particular event, I gave a total of 67 readings, non-stop direct. Remember what I was talking about earlier. I am Scottish trained, previous slide, which makes a big difference. If you're watching this in America, trust me, unless you've encountered a Scottish medium, it does make a huge difference when you see us work. I would probably say the worst Scottish medium, probably in America, United States, would be regarded as fandabidosi or unbelievable. And I teach my methods based on the way that I operate in Scotland and have been trained in Scotland. I think the best way to think of what I do, yes, it is circle based, but it's not like any other circle or circles you've ever been to. I run a boot camp. I am unyielding. In 6 months, I will take a novice beginner and get them to the point where they could work professionally as a clairvoyant medium. Now, I have complete faith in my methodologies and the way that I train. Many people can't take that. That's why I have Steve, a training advisor, meet with you first, basically to screen you, to make sure that you're ready to be exposed to myself. But if you then decide to join us in the long-term 6 months training program, I need to be sure that you've got the commitment for it. I need to be sure that you can stand up to the pressure that I am going to put you under. It is literally a boot camp. You know, you don't come along for one circle a month and move along at your own speed. You are going to work, you are going to train, you are going to exercise, you are going to learn my methodologies. And it is a methodology. I have other people that I might bring in to train you. I might even get you up to the point where you learn how to train other people during that time period. And I have complete faith in my methodology. I have complete faith in my abilities. You notice that I'm not asking you to pay. Come to this training circle up front. I am screening you, yes, because I don't want to sit here with 100 people that aren't going to commit. But I'm quite happy for you at the end of those 2 circles to say, Mark, sorry, this just isn't for me, or I've got no faith in you, because I know that I can demonstrate what I'm saying. And if I don't get you up to speed within 6 months, well, you can hang around in my circles for another 6 months, for up to 12 months, until you feel ready, or until I say you're ready, or we meet halfway in between the two. Again, I'm not charging you anything extra for that, and I'm saying it because I'm quite confident that you'll be where I think you'll be at the end of the 6 months. Finally, before you make a decision, do some research. Look me up on Facebook, do a search on Google. You'll find at the time of this video there are about 2 pages of solid links if you do a search for Marc Stuart Medium. You'll find me working, you'll find videos on YouTube where you'll see me actually working. You'll find multiple 3 videos that I put up for meditation. As I said, come and try us out for the weekend, do your research first, come to 2 circles, and then make an informed decision for yourself.